In this video, I'm going to tell you why sport-specific training as an athlete might be an unpopular performance-killing, self-destruction pill for your body and especially your knee, and why before even thinking about doing all those sport-specific trainings, you need to master deep squats first. I think we can all agree that a joint is meant to move through the full range of motion in order to stay healthy and strong. And I think we can also agree that in order to reverse the effects of a certain lifestyle that isn't optimal for our body, for our health, we have to do the exact opposite. So for a person that is always sitting, always in hip flexion, we do the exact opposite by stretching that out, hip extension, right? And for a person that is always hunching forward at the desk, typing, what would you do to reverse those effects? To reverse the effects so that our body still maintains its proper functions, what would you do? You'll probably stretch it out, right? Stretch out the shoulders, open up the chest, stretch out your thoracic spine. And the reason why we have to do all that stretching and reversing of those bad effects is that sitting and hunching forward is simply not our body's natural way to maintain itself. Our bodies were not designed to just sit and hunch forward. Our bodies were designed to walk, to run on a daily basis, to push things, to pull things, to squat, to deadlift, all of those activities. And that's how our body keeps staying functional and being able to move like it's meant to move. And I know all of this is like the basic advice, probably not even interesting you. But the reason I'm telling you this is if you now look at contact sports, what aspects do you notice there? We notice that we're mainly jumping and running. These movements, these sport-specific movements of jumping and running, if you look at them, they really don't require a knee angle of 90 degrees or less, right? You're always in that upper range. When you're jumping, you're not going below 90 degrees. When you're running, you're also not going below 90 degrees. So what we're doing is always overloading that upper range of the knee joint. And this is nothing inherently bad, but here comes the point. Overloading those upper range joint angles in your sport itself, and then going into training sessions and hitting them even more, doing more sprints, doing plyometrics, doing half squats. That is what might be the unpopular performance-killing, self-destruction pill for your human knee. Now hear me out, I'm not saying there is no place for sprint and plyometric training at all. There is definitely a time and place for that, but if you're not loading that deep knee bend, that deep squats equally well, then you're leaving massive gains on the table. And not only that, you're also increasing the risk of you injuring yourself. To explain that, let me run it back quickly. Because as I've said earlier, for the sedentary lifestyle, what would the ideal training look like? Ideally, you train the muscles that are tight, you strengthen the muscles that you're not using in this sedentary lifestyle. So what you're doing is simply, with the training, you're trying to supply what the sedentary lifestyle isn't, to make sure your body stays functional and healthy. So why is it that when we think about optimizing our performance for sports, that we always just think about doing more of that sport-specific stuff, more of those plyometrics, more sprints? Because when you're playing, you're already doing plyometrics, you're jumping, you're landing, you're running, you're cutting. All of that is plyometrics. And we see nowadays, the people are running more than ever. They are jumping more than ever. But what we also notice is that we have quite an epidemic of knee ligament tears, patellar tendinitis, tendon ruptures, etc. So there is something not quite working in our favor. And while I know that injuries are definitely a part of sports, I also know that every athlete that isn't deep squatting is not doing his body a favor. I mean, if your goal really is to perform better, to decrease the risk of injury, in my opinion, there isn't a single reason you shouldn't be deep squatting. There really isn't. By training deep squats, you're simply supplying what your sport isn't. You're actively encouraging your connective tissue around your knee to grow because your knee is actually being used like it is supposed to be used. But let's just have a closer look at what studies say about deep squats and not just me trying to sell you deep squats. One study says that provided the technique is learned accurately under expert supervision and with progressive training loads, the deep squat presents an effective exercise for protection against injuries and strengthening of the lower extremity. And contrary to commonly voiced concerns, deep squats do not contribute increased risk of injury to passive tissues. Actually, listen closely, only squatting to 90 degrees, thighs parallel to floor like this, puts more stress on your knees, works mainly the muscles, and leaves your connective tissue in your knee weak. So your muscles are now here, your connective tissue is here, and this is problematic because in your sport, the muscles are not really that good at protecting your knee. It comes down to your connective tissue. Your connective tissue holds your knee together, literally. Your ligaments connect your bones to the bones, and your tendons connect the muscles to the bones. So if you're doing those plyometrics to jump higher, to run faster, first you gotta take a look at the number one reason that prevents you from actually getting there, from actually running faster, actually jumping higher. And for many of us, that is a weak knee. And once you understand that, it gets obvious that you want to get your knee stronger, you want to get your knee bulletproof. So you don't get damaged when you jump high, and you don't get damaged when you run fast and you have to slow down all that force. And that is again where deep squats are king for us athletes, because by loading those deep knee bends, it is shown that you can grow your meniscus, your cartilage, your bones, your ligaments. They can actually grow, but just much slower than your muscle. And look, what's even better than this is that a study has found that deep front and back squats guarantee performance enhancing transfer effects of dynamic maximal strength to dynamic speed strength capacity of hip and knee extensors compared with quarter squats. And that simply means that deep squats transfer better to your performance than quarter squats. So to sum it up, what I want you to take out of this video for you is, if you're an athlete playing a contact sport where you have to run a lot, jump a lot, and you want to get better at that whilst getting more protected against injuries, you need to be doing deep squats. This ensures you're not only overloading your knee in that upper range, but you're actually loading that deep knee bend as well. And with deep squats like this, you're actually able to grow your connective tissue within your knee, just like your muscle, just much slower. That's why deep squats are shown to increase your performance in a healthy way, because you're actually growing your connective tissue. You're not just developing your muscles. That is the key. And that is really what makes the difference. And again, contrary to commonly voiced concerns, deep squats do not contribute increased risk of injury to your passive tissues in your knee. No. In fact, they're making you more strong, more protected for your sport, and decrease the risk of you getting a knee injury. So the ultimate formula for you as a contact sport athlete is your sport itself, deep squats, and then you can think about sport-specific training like sprints and plyometrics. But don't try to rush that process. Don't try to rush those deep squats. Like I've said earlier, your connective tissue takes longer to adapt than your muscles. So you really don't want to rush this process. Think long term. And if right now you're in so much knee pain that you can't even get into a full deep knee bend like this, I got you. I'm going to show you a few ways to get there. The first and simplest way to get there is through an ATG split squat that allows you to train that deeper range at your pain-free level of elevation. And over time, you can get stronger and stronger in this deep knee bend, and you can lower the elevation until you're on flat ground. And at that point, you should be able to do deep squats. Another way to get into a deep squat is to use floss bands. By wrapping these bands around your knee, you're supporting it, and when you're taking it off again, new fresh blood gets pumped into your knee and gives you a nice feeling and even provides a great healing effect. If you want to learn more about floss bands, make sure to check out this video. In my opinion, floss bands is something every athlete needs to have in their toolbox. And if you want to learn more about effective training to increase your athleticism and decrease your risk of injury, make sure to check out this video. I hope this video helped. If it did, make sure to subscribe to my channel and share this video with someone that needs to be deep squatting ASAP. Make sure to stay locked in, especially if you don't feel like it. Peace.